All right, all right. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the series if you've been following. If you just landed here, this is a series about doing really cool stuff with React. So I'm teaching you guys how to know how to get to point where you can do this code, this basically weather card, where you can actually change and do requests to different cities and get different results and so on. Okay, thankfully it's working. So this is part where I'm teaching you, and this is a series about learning React in 2020. So once you finish this, you get a really good introduction in React, and you can do anything else with React. So yeah, if you're new here, like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Before I start though, there's only one thing I want to get some feedback from you guys. I bought this camera and I did this setup because I think it might improve your learning experience if you can see me. Let me know if there is something that you actually need. If it's not necessary, it will save me a lot of trouble. Or yeah, just let me know if this is something that you want or not. Okay, so here we go again. I am back into Visual Studio Code in the weather project that we discussed before. So the first thing you need to know is, of course, I'm hoping that by this point you guys know what Webpack is, and this is where we handle all the dependencies, and this is also where we have the scripts. So when you install create React app, it comes with its own scripts, and the first script that we want to do here is start. So that means if I go to the terminal by pressing Ctrl J or Command J and do npm start, what's going to happen is that this app that we just created is going to run, and I'm going to wait for that for a second, and here we go. So this is, okay, let me close the old one. So this is the Create React app. So this is the standard Create React app that you get. And there's a lot of these things that we actually do not want at all. So I'm going to go ahead and just clean things up a little bit. So if I go to public here, actually no, I'm in public. This is just the precompiled. My focus is here on the SRC folder. So I'm going to go into the app.css, and I don't need any of that, to be honest. Like all of this just comes with the Create React app, so I'm just going to delete it. If I go into app.js, this is also the things that we just saw. I don't need any of that. I'm just going to leave one div, which is going, in this case, is going to be called app, just as a container or something. That's all good as well. I don't need this. I'm going to delete it. So I'm only importing React, and I'm importing the CSS file. It's just called app.css, which we just cleaned just now. And what else? If I go to index.css, this is just, I think this is also imported, applies to everything. I also don't need that. Yeah, I'm just gonna start from the beginning, or actually we can just leave it in. Yeah, that doesn't really matter. We're not gonna import any code, so we can delete that. Yeah, just leave it as it is, it's fine. Logos SVG, I'm not gonna be using that logo, so I can right click that and delete it as well. Are you sure? Yes, I am sure. Leave that as it is, git ignore. Oh, actually, let me delete that. Sorry, I just created it before doing the video. So like you see, like I'm just not doing anything much. I'm just cleaning things up a little bit for us to start working. So now if I go back to my browser and refresh this, there's nothing. Right click, go to view page source, for example. This is the main HTML. I think from here it's like that. Yes, Control Shift J. And if I go to elements here, yeah, just the bundle. So this is what Create React app, what React is actually doing. And this is the root folder, and the root folder only have this div class app that we created before. And this is what we see here, and there's nothing else. Let me also make this slightly bigger. Yes, here we go, better. Okay, all good, beautiful. So again, what we're gonna do now is we are going to start coding this card, and we are going to do the card. As you can see here that the card changes color based on the temperature. In this video, I'm just going to do the stateless card. So this is just going to be basic CSS and HTML. Like, yeah, it's just going to be, we're going to do the most basic thing first, and then from there, next video, we're going to pick it up and make sure how to import the API requests and do the stateful app and so on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my SRC folder, have a new file called weathercard.js. So this is going to be the component, that's the card itself. And in this, I'm just simply going to do import React from React, simple stuff. And I'm going to press SFC. Remember the last video we installed a snippet add-on. So if I do just SFC and then press enter, I get this, which is like, yeah, stateless functional component. Of course, nowadays you can use state inside a functional component, but this is just, it's called the stateless functional component. So now the component is called weather card, and you can see it's filling up the name of the function and also the default export. And just put here props. We're not gonna using it for now, but you just might as well. Now, this is a fresh install of VS Code, and before doing this, I tried to do Emmet. I'm sure you guys know Emmet. So I tried to do Emmet like something like that, and then you just get the div with the class name. For some reason, Emmet was not working, and then I realized that I think the main install of VS Code does not enable Emmet inside JS files. So this is one thing that you can simply fix in here. This is just a snippet, a code snippet. I'm just gonna copy this. This is just to enable it in all other file types. This is just telling include languages of JavaScript, Vue, HTML, and Jade, and so on. I'm just gonna copy this, and then I am going to go to settings by pressing Control, comma, or Command, comma in Mac, and just go here, search for Emmet, not Emmer. Emmet, just go to emmet.includeLanguages, and yes, this file will open up, and you can see I have included this part. You can just include it yourself. I will leave the link to this page and a link and the snippet of this also in the description below. So you can just copy this, put it here, and then Emmet will start working in JS. So if you just have this problem, just do as it is. Just do that like I just did here. Include this snippet, and then it will start working again. Beautiful. Okay, so now let's think about the output first here. This is the output that we want to get at, and let's think about this and try to restructure our HTML properly. So we will have a div. This is a div that's going to be the actual card itself, right? And inside that div, we will have the name of the city, we will have the name of the country, and then we will have an image. And then after that, we will have this, the temperature with the degrees Celsius symbol. And then the lastly is going to be they call it the main, or the weather condition, whether it's cloudy, whether it's rainy, and so on. Okay, so basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a div, and inside that div we'll have an h1 for the city, an h2 maybe, or h3 for the country, and the sizes of this will change later. We're gonna change that with the CSS, and I'm going to have an image here, and then after that I'm going to have a text, maybe an h1 as well, that will have the size of the temperature, and then again another h2 or h3 for the weather condition. So that with that in mind, I can do this. I can do div, oopsie, not here. Let's go here. I can do div dot, let's call it card. So this is the main div with a card inside of it. Press tab, and then you get this, beautiful. And inside that, I'm gonna have an h1 plus h1 for the city, and then h3 for the country, and then another one image, and then after that image we will have another h3, no, actually h1, sorry, for the degree, for the temperature with the degree Celsius symbol, and then the last thing is going to be another h3, which is going to have the condition. So if I press tab, I get everything that I want. And for example, here I'm gonna do Sydney. It's in Australia, and leave this for a moment. I'll come back to this later. The SRC, but let's go to the alt and say this is the weather icon. Beautiful. And this is going to be, let's just say it's 20 degrees Celsius. And here, the degree Celsius symbol, I'm simply just going to copy and paste this. Control C, Control V, beautiful. And let's just say it's cloudy. It's called clouds. I think the API just returns clouds. Beautiful. So yeah, this is it. I save this, and then I need to import that component and render it into the app. So I'm gonna come inside the div class called app, and then open up here, and then just say I'm gonna type weather card, and you can see VS Code simply just imported itself. So it already knows that there's a component called weather card exporting something called weather card, and this import happens automatically, which is really beautiful. Good. So far, so good. So now usually you would have your imports at the top. So if you have any other libraries or something that you're importing, you just give it all of it at the top, and then you have one empty line, and then you have your own imports. So this is just a convention, and basically that's it. If I go to Chrome, where I am actually rendering all of this here, and I refresh that, I see we have Sydney, we have AU, we have the weather icon, which we don't have any source for it yet, and we have the degree temperature, and then we have clouds. Beautiful. So far, so good. Now, what I'm going to do, the first thing is I'm going to go to app CSS. This is where we're going to have all our CSS, and I'll open it side by side with our weather card so we can see what we're actually doing. Another thing also that I noticed that I don't have a prettier installed in this machine, which I really don't like. So quickly, I'm just gonna do a search for prettier. No, still no. Really? Can I connect? Okay, never mind. All right, so I'm going to open them side by side like this, and I'm going to start writing my CSS. So the first thing is, this is the card, and this card, I'm going to just give it a background, and then I'm going to give it a linear gradient, and that linear gradient is going to be to the top, to top, and then that linear gradient, say for example, it starts from red to pink. This is just for standard, like you give it a try, you want to see something rendered first. And then I'm going to give this a width of, let me look at my code, previous code here, a width of 200 pixels, and a height of 240 pixels, And then I'm going to give it a display, not inline, a display of flex, yep. And then a flex direction of column, and then after that I'm gonna give it what else? I'm gonna give it justify content of space around, no, space between. Okay, let's just give this a shot and see how this looks like. If you go here, okay, why is clouds outside of my div? This is a good question. Clouds is inside the div. Interesting. Justify content, this is to top, red. Okay, another thing also, I don't like this to be like that in the middle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, oopsie, let's just go here, before in the start, brother, in the start there. I'm going to do .app, which is the class name that has the app from the beginning. And in that app, I'm just gonna do a margin of 0 auto. So that is the container that's containing this. If I refresh that, okay, that's not working. Go here, class name app with a capital A. Beautiful. So that should fix it. Class name app, margin 0. Yep, that will fix this, but then we need to also center the card itself inside its container. So that would be 002 here as well. Yes, so now it's in the middle of the page. Beautiful. Now I also need to here align items in the center. You look at that, and then everything else in the center now. I think, yes, now this is too big, so it's floating outside of the card. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just gonna increase this to 280. Everything else will adjust later once we change the sizes of the text. But in this case, I am just gonna do the easy way for now. What else do we need to do here? Sydney, AU, weather icon, 20 degrees Celsius, clouds. So I think, yes, for this card, we're gonna give it a border radius, border radius of, border radius. We're gonna give it a border radius of 15 pixels. Okay, so far so good. Yep, that is beautiful. And then I think maybe we can just give it a little bit of margin from the top and the bottom, so it's not as much to the top of the page like that. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna stagger these next to each other like this, and then just work with one, so it's less distracting. Yes, this is good. Just close this down, and then we can work on our CSS properly. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so far so good. So we have our card now, and it's not a great start. I can see that, of course, but it's a start, and this is where we're gonna be at a starting point. Now here I have Sydney. So for Sydney, I'm just gonna give it a class name equals, let's just say this is city. Okay, and then here also I'm gonna give this a class name equals country, equals country. And this image, I'm gonna give it a class name equals say icon, weather icon. Just call it icon for now. And this is going to be class name of this is the temp. Okay, and then this last one is class name of condition with an N. Okay, beautiful. If I go back to my CSS, I can now work with these guys. So now the first thing I want to do is actually work on the city. So let's just say I'm working on the city here, and I don't like this font family at all. So I'm gonna do a font family called weather. I think it's called, one second, stay with me, Merryweather. Yes, I'm going to get Merryweather. Yes, Merryweather, but this W is small. So Merryweather sans-serif, and I think because in this CSS we need to put this in there. Now Merryweather is not included yet, so I'm going to quickly go to Google, just Merryweather Google fonts. This is just extremely simple. Go there. So I'm going to include Merryweather, and I'm also going to include Fira Sans. So Merryweather, just select this font, just go there and go to the import. Yep, we can import this. Nope, not here. Here we can take this and import it at the top of my CSS file. That works. And then let's refresh this. Yes, beautiful. Now it's working. So I got this font selected. Now let me go back to Google Fonts and let me search for Fira Sans. I like Fira Sans too. Just add it as well. Go here, go there, and then go to import. I think you can also equal, I think how, no, give me a second. If I go to Merryweather here and then add it, I think you can do both of them in one import. Yes, Fira Sans /. Okay, so you just go, go to Merryweather and then just do this, Merryweather, and then Fira plus Sans. Fira plus Sans. Okay, that's it. Save this, and then just to check that this is actually working, I can do this now. Fira Sans, and then that should make it look different. Yes, it does look different. If I change this back to Merryweather, beautiful, it's different font. Okay, that's it. That's just basically just I'm importing very, very simple fonts. Okay, good. Now I want the city to be Fira Sans, but then, and then I want the font size here. The font size here to be, let's say 1.2 EM. So this is way too small. So let's just say 1.8 EM. Actually a little bit less than that, 1.6 EM. Okay, beautiful. Now you can see here, because this is an H1, like this distance here is really like, yeah, not optimal at all. And if I inspect this, you can see it's already having its own margins by default. Now I want to have like a very simple basic CSS reset. And for that, I am going to actually change this body to just a star. Margins equals 0, and then also padding equals 0. Padding equals 0. This just will compile everything, and then you can see this now that everything is just on its own, so I can play with it normally. So this is just super basic CSS reset. And you can see now that the items inside the card are kind of stretched at the end of the card itself. That's basically because, what's going on? Sorry, just give me a second. Oh, junk emails, sorry. And then that's basically because I have this as space between. So if I change this to space around, this is gonna give it a little bit more breathing room. So this is what I want. And then you can see now that if we compare this to the final version, you can see this is kind of like in the same field, like very, very close to one another. If you know that's not working here, if you did this to is like really close to one another, we can achieve this effect by simply just going back to my weather card, going back to the HTML, and then I'm going to group both of these, the H1 and the H3, into a specific div itself. And we can do that by Control-Shift-P, and then you could wrap this, wrap with abbreviation. It's called emmet abbreviation, and then we can just give a div with location. So it's a div with a class name of location. That's it. Refresh this, and then now everything is just squashed a little bit more. And then inside inside the app CSS, yep, I can also influence this location class name now by saying text-align equals center, and that will fix everything in the middle. So you can see the location is kind of squished on its own, and I probably don't need much there. In this case, I'm just gonna leave it as it is. And then another thing I just noticed, we can change this to be to bottom, and then just the other way around. And I can also change the color of all the fonts to white. Yep, looking okay. Not looking great, looking okay. Now, I'm going to leave the weather icon for a bit now, and then my work with the city and then my work with the country is not really finished. So I'm just gonna give this a font, I'm just gonna give this a font family of the exact Fira sans that we just mentioned, and just replace it with sans serif if they can't load it. Yep, beautiful. Now it looks good. I think the size is okay. You can get it a little bit smaller. Font size, I think this is probably a 1. This is what, an H3. So let's just say a 1.1 rem. 1.1 rem, yeah, just a little bit there, and you keep this as rems, not EMs. Beautiful. So they are relative. So far so good. Now I think we can actually contract this back to 240, because yep, this is the exact card that we have here. Yes, beautiful. It's just different colors. We are working on that. Just stay with me. Okay, beautiful. Now I'm going back to my HTML just to see. I have the icon. Forget about the icon for now. I just have this temperature, and for the temperature, I am going to do a couple of things here. I absolutely hate the font, so I'm going to give it a font family. If I'm not mistaken, this is Fira Sans, that one that looks good. Fira Sans, let me just check. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this at Fira Sans, and also replace it with sans serif as usual. Go to font size, and I think this should be, let's do actually a 2. Let's do a 2 rems. Let's do a 2 rems. Really? Let's do a 2.5 rems. No, way too big. Yes. Just a 2 rem will do. Yup. And then why is the font weight not working? Yes, beautiful. Yup, that font weight is beautiful. Like it to be elegant in a way. Okay, so far so good. Now let's do the condition itself. Condition, and for the condition, also I will give this a font family of Merriweather. sans-serif, and then I will give it a font size of I'm guessing 1.2 rems will do for now. Yes, beautiful. Looks good. Okay, beautiful. So far so good. Now this is okay. It's an okay start. What I'm gonna do now is I am going to show you guys how to figure out the icons. So this has been a bit annoying for me to find out really good icons, and the icons that I settled down on are icons that I grabbed from a PSD file, and then I had to export these PSDs into smaller PNGs and work with them. Which has been okay, so far so good, and I'll show you guys how we can change and select which one to choose. I am just going to import one of them. In this case, let's just just save image as. This is just the simplest thing here. I am going to go to go to web projects, go to weather, inside the src, inside public, and then I will give a new folder called image, and then inside that folder we give the mostly cloudy file, the PNG. Beautiful, so far so good. Now I can come back here and then I could do here ./img and then mostly cloudy, I think that's what it's called. Let's just go to that folder which I haven't opened in a while. Web projects, weather, public, img, and then I'm just gonna copy this. Beautiful. Just go here again and then delete this, put this, and then .png. Crossing my fingers this works. Yes, here we go. Beautiful. This looks good. Starting to take shape, boys. Here we go. Now, this image absolutely is ridiculously too big, and that's why I give it the icon class name. So I can influence this image, going back here and just doing icon, and then the width of that icon is going to be 40%. Let me see how that goes. I think I'm running with 40% on my production. Yeah, that's what I remember. So 40% will do, I think in this case, actually 35. No, I think 40 is right. 40 is right. Beautiful. So this is just the basic, very, very, very basic way of getting this to work. Now, of course, I'm just giving you a snippet of how that will work, but there is way, way too many things that we can do with this. If I change this to blue to light blue, yep. So this is if it's a cold country, and if it's a hot country, which you just saw just now. Now, there's many things that we can do to influence this and have it react or change based on the input that we get from the API. And this is what React is all about. But I would like to stop here and just talk about a couple of things where we can actually improve our components far much better than this. So I'm just going to ignore the HTML for now. I'm just going to look at this. Now, it's okay. This is kind of like okay way to write components, I believe, but it's not really the best way. First of all, you have your app.css here. Keep in mind, like right now we are developing like a very, very minor part of the app. So, and I have all that CSS here, and it's a different file, and this is in app.css. And then also my folder structure here is not the greatest, because now I have weather card, which is just one JS file just floating somewhere there. So imagine that for every single component of these, you would have one JS file. And then if you go back to the final render, so you have one JS file here, one JS file here, one JS file here, and then for the clocks, and then for the username, and then that. So that really, really makes it like really like, yeah, ridiculously annoying. And then another thing is, keep in mind that like this is just the static version of the component. So that means that there's no logic in this component. There's basically nothing happening. It's just like displaying info. And that means that this component is extremely simplified, but your production component will not be that simple. So that really pushes you to think hard about what kind of structure that you want to have in your app. And I really, really, really disliked working with, for example, something like JSS, which is CSS in JS, in the beginning. But I've come to actually really, really like it, because I started working on, for example, for this weather component. It looked very different when I started with it. And then I moved it to this next project. And then I started to copy my work from the older projects to the new project. And then I realized that, now I have to copy these snippets from the CSS file. So I have to take this and put it there. I have to take this and put it there. And then like different components will have different names in the card. You have location, and then you have in the news, you have category, and you have location as well, and then you have to change it. Okay, and then now you find yourself going into the deep rabbit hole of BEM. Okay, you have to follow this method of B block element modifier and so on. All of that is okay. I've done that some times ago, and it works if you're doing some static apps. But the beauty of using a framework like React is to get this mindset, which I talked about in the last video, of I am building reusable chunks of code called components. Okay, this is my annoying phone just now. Give me a second. I'm using I'm doing reusable chunks of code called components, and this is the power of using something like React, because you think differently. And in this case, this is actually what I'm trying to get at, is that we have to think differently about how we structure our components, simply because it's gonna get really, really, really messy. And I chose to start working with a very, very basic way of working, and then to show you that, okay, this looks okay, but I'm not going to wait until we actually start adding code to work on. For example, like this. You see, I need a snippet to change this source of the image every time based on the input that I get from the API. So if the API tells me that the city is cloudy, I have to load one image. If it tells me that I have to, if it's rainy, I have to do another image, and so on. Now you can do this in so many ways, but the easiest way, which I'm going to show you, like the simplest way, I think, is a switch. Code. And to do that switch code is going to take at least like 10, 12 lines. So imagine this is just a snippet of logic for a very, very simple thing, which is just changing the image, and it's taking maybe like 12 lines or something. Now I need another one for the changing the CSS, the background in the CSS, and this one is a bit heavy because it's like it's computational. It takes the components, and then it takes the temperature, and then calculates different values and so on. I'll show that as well later, but then you have to put that as well there. And then also I need to do the I need the component to hold my state, and I need to do API requests, and I need to parse the data that comes from the API request and all of that. So things are going to get really complicated, and because of that you need a way of thinking. And that way of thinking is basically, you have to ask yourself, what is the responsibility of this component? So for example, right now I have a container called card, and that container, what is the responsibility? What is this card doing? If I look at the CSS here, I can see that this card is basically just aligning the components under it, right? And then also displaying different backgrounds based on the temperature. That's it. This is what the card does. And this is simple, right? So I can leave this responsibility into the card. All right, so far so good, beautiful. If I move on to the next one, I have the component called city. Now, city later city will have to take input from the user. If I click on it and then I open up an input tag, and then I'm gonna like do an input to the API request and so on. Now this is not the responsibility of card. So the code for taking input from the user should not be in the card component. In fact, I have to abstract this city to a different component. The same, I don't change the country, so the country is right, but it's probably gonna stay here, it doesn't matter. The same thing with the image. Displaying the image is the card responsibility, right? So it stays, the displaying itself stays there, and the logic might stay there. Actually, the logic will have to go there. No, the logic will not stay there. The logic will have to go to icon. So if I abstract the icon itself in a different component, I can keep the logic for changing the icon there. So everything is just beautiful and changeable. So if I come back later and then say, okay, I want to reuse my work to do a different card design, I'm not really rewriting everything from the start. I'm just taking this JS file, copy paste, put it there, happy days. Copy paste, put it there, happy days. Just move on, import it, and move on. Okay, I'm just blabbering at this point, so I'm just gonna go and show you how we're gonna change this to actually more reusable chunks of code. So the first thing I am going to do is I'm going to make a folder inside src and call that folder components. Beautiful. And then I'm going to drag the weather card into components. Yes, move it please. And then update imports. Yes, please update the imports. Oh, I absolutely love VS Code sometimes. Okay, beautiful. Now I can also, what I'm also want to do is at some point I need to abstract all these, some of these components into their own JS folder, JS file. And because of that, I am going to make another folder inside components, and this folder will be called weather card. So I have another folder inside this called weather card, and I'm going to drag the JS file there. Can you please, yes, please move it and update the imports, please. Yes, beautiful. So if I go here, and it's coming from there. So far so good. And now what I'm doing is I have a component, and inside that component I have weather card. So I don't really need this to be weather card. I can just call this component.js. Beautiful. Yes, please update all the imports. So now you can see I'm importing the component inside the folder called weather card. So far so good. Now, I don't like having CSS separately. Again, I don't like having CSS separately simply because I don't want to see things that way. I want everything that I do is inside one JS file. excuse me. So if I want to reuse that part of the component into another project, I can just copy that CSS file, the JS file, and I'm good to go. And because of that, we need to use CSS and JS. Now, again, CSS and JS is a really controversial topic in a way. There are many different libraries for it. Some people like it, some people hate it. I used to hate it. Now it's the only way I do CSS in React. And I'd really, really suggest that you do the same. So I think this is getting way too long, but for now I'm just gonna do this quickly. Emotion.sh. This is the library that I use for using JSS, CSS styles, and so on, which is not loading for some reason. Okay, here we go. It's loading now. So the way this works is you import CSS from Emotion, and then you can do something like this. You can do a class name, CSS, and then you put it inside your JS file. This is not what we're going to do because that really doesn't look so good. The way I like to do it is actually do this, Emotion styled. So I can do this. So I can do, if you want to have a button, then you can do, okay, style the button, and then you change that way. And I will show you why this is really good. But before we do that, let me just go ahead and install this. So go to VS Code, stop the current process that's working by pressing Ctrl+C, and then just go and just basically paste this. I'm installing Emotion styled and Emotion core. Press enter and wait for it. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, and done. Oh, my goodness, 48 seconds. I hate this. My internet sucks. All right. Anyway, so I got that imported now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import. I think it's an object styled. Oopsie, styled. What's going on? Styled from. And then just do, I think it's add emotion. Yeah, add emotion that's styled. Beautiful. And yep, this is so far so good. Okay, and instead of doing it that way, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do, because you will see why this is really cool, but if I do const card now, yep, const card equals styled.div, and then just two backticks, and then I can paste my CSS here exactly the same way. Let me just go back to here. Yes, and I can simply just paste back normal, absolutely normal CSS. So if I can take this CSS, whatever I've done to card here, I can take that, copy this, and then put it here. Oopsie, no, sorry, my bad. Go here, just copy the CSS itself, copy that, put it here, and we are good to go. Okay, so far so good. And then I can also just delete this. I can also delete this, go here, and then if I now run npm start, I should see absolutely no difference. Actually, I should see a difference, sorry. Then the second thing I need to do is actually, instead of just having this as a div, I am going to change this to card. Oh, sorry. Let's change this to card. Card, yes. Failed to compile. Styled is not exported from Emotion styled. Really, I think it's a capital styled, isn't it, brother? No, okay, it's not an object, it's just the main default export, so I just need to delete these. Yep, so far so good. Compile successfully, go there, and then everything is the same. Now, what is the big fuss about all of this? The big fuss about all of this is that if I want to, say for example, if I want to do this RGBA, okay, and then inside that I would like to put an actual, let's just say this is what? Let's just say this is the red value. So just say this is a variable called red, and then I have 200 here, RGB with another 200 here. Okay, and then I could just come here and then just do const red equals 200, and then just do this and then render this, and then now it's rendering. Now if, let me just put this here, close this down, and then if I change this to say 100, now the color changes. This is the power of JSS. I just used a variable inside my CSS, and this is exactly what I need to be able to do later. If you want to do normal CSS, you can also work with the way you want to change it, but it's just going to be really painful. And also I get the bonus of just knowing this is the card. I don't need this anymore. So what I'm doing is I'm doing card. So you can see, okay, this is the card, this is a component, and then I'll do the same thing with location if I need to. I'll do the same thing here, and I'll do the same thing here. And you will see that the code will look way much nicer after you finish. And then keep in mind, like I mentioned earlier, this is the weather card component, right? Component.js is talking about weather card, and the responsibility of it is to do this, is to display the things and change the the background based on a variable that you'll pass to it. So this is just makes sense. Think about it this way. What is the responsibility of this component? And just make sure that you limit it to the responsibility of this component. Now that being said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to abstract this location as well. So I'm simply just going to cut this and then go inside here and just go do a file called location.js. And inside there, I'm going to import React from React, and then just give me SFC. Oopsie, this is the wrong way to put it, but never mind, I'll come back to it. Sorry, this is location. Yes, there will be props passed onto it. And then here, I'm just gonna pass this onto it. And then this is going to be, sorry, my bad. This is just going to be React like that. Yes, beautiful. Okay, so far so good. Save this, and then you can change the type here to React so it can actually render properly. Not sure why it's not really. Oh, sorry, this is not import. My bad. It's a typo. Import React. Oh my God. What's up with? It's the end of the day, boys. Sorry. I'm very sorry. Okay, so far so good. Now, of course, I'm going to also import styled. I can just copy and paste this. I'm not really a fan of typing too much. So I can import this, and then I am going to just do const. Let's just, in this case, it's called container. Const container equals styled.div, and I am simply just going to copy everything that I put in location, which is very little. That's awesome. Just go here and put this there. Sorry, it's basically text align, text dash align. Oh yeah, text align equals center. Okay, and then I can actually just delete this and change this to container here and container here. So far so good. Now I go back to my component, and then I need to import this location, from, and then now I'm just gonna stay in the same file, in the same folder structure, go to location here, and then I have location, and then I'm going to just import location here. That's it. If I go back to Chrome, everything should render the same way. Beautiful. So no effect whatsoever. I just abstract things so I can work with it in a better way. Now, because this is quite simple, I can do the same thing with const city. Const city equals styled.h1 in this case. And then again, extra backticks. Let me close this. Just go to city. Yep, so far so good. I'm going to copy this and put it here. In the next video, because this is getting too long, in the next video I'll show you how to can actually make the styled things look a bit better, because it doesn't look so good here. And then we can go there and then just change this to city and change this to city too. Okay, that should make no difference whatsoever. And then we can do the same thing with country. Again, const country equals styled dot, what is that? Actually, it doesn't really matter because I'm changing this. This is an H3. Okay, oopsie, no, you cannot leave space there. Leave 2 double ticks and then go put these here, 1.1 with a Fira sans on it. So far so good. No. Change this to country. And then go there as well and change this to country. Beautiful. If I go back to Chrome, nothing should change. So far so good. Okay, now beautiful. So this is my location, and inside there, so again, let me explain this again. So what's going on here is basically I am saying that the location component is now responsible for styling its container, styling its children, basically the city and the country. And then now if I want to pass different values to these, I will show you how to do that in the next lecture. But for now, like, yeah, this is just way more readable code. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the rest of the things. I don't think we can change that with the image. We can actually do that. Yeah, that's fine. Just give me a second. I'll be back because it's a bit tedious. I don't want to bore you with this. I will be back. All right, good. I'm back. So I've done this really quickly. And yeah, what we have done here is now my CSS is almost empty. And then now I have many different components. So if I close this CSS now, I have my main component, which is responsible for rendering the container and giving it different styling properties, and later will be responsible for passing the props. That's why it's a bit empty. And then inside that I can see clearly now, and I can read. This is much readable code. I have card, I have location, I have icon, and then I have the condition. And if I put this next to this, I can see this is the card, and inside there is location, there's an icon, there's the condition. Beautiful, so far so good. And then I also made, if I go to the location itself, let's just check one by one. If I go to location, I can see here there's a container, which is the main div, and then just aligning them in the center. And then here we have Sydney, city also the same, and then inside that city and then country. Icon is the same thing with this, and then the src will change later, and again you'll see how all of this will change later. And then lastly is the condition, and then this is just a fraction, because in React you cannot export different two things without a parent. You have to export some kind of a div. So this is just a React fraction shortcut to get them exported together. Now I told you before that this is a fresh install, sadly. I really miss working on my MacBook, but yeah, this is a fresh install just to teach this series. So there's a couple of extra add-ons that you might have, which will make this way much easier. I think the first thing is prettier. Yes, prettier code formatter, beautiful. So this is already installed in this case, but it's not working, which is really horrible. So if I go to the settings here, I can look for something called format, and then the default formatter is going to be prettier than VS Code, I believe. I think that will make it work. Where is it? Yes, that will work. And then format on paste, format on save, format on type. Okay, good. So now if I go back to this and then just save it, yes, see the beauty. Oh, now everything looks better. Oh my goodness, this is more beautiful. I love it. Yes, this is how the code usually looks in my eyes. So yeah, yeah, this is really good. So this is the first one. And then the second one, I think there was one to change, how to say this, where like when you change the div, you say I want to change this, so I don't want to go here, change this to card, and then go change the other one to card. There's one that automatically changes both of them on their own. Give me a second, I'll come back. Yes, this one. Woohoo! Auto rename tag, beautiful. So now I think that's the one that I've been using. Autocomplete tag, highlight match. I use that one as well. Highlight matching tag. Just install this without thinking. It's really cool. Because once you are in one tag, yeah, I'll show you if that works. So if I'm here, I can see that this is closing at this, but this is beautiful. And then let's go to, I think it's auto rename tag. Yes, I think so. You just go to install here. With 2 million downloads, you're probably not going wrong. Let me just check quickly. Yep. Yes, this is the one. So if I go here and then I change, yes, beautiful. This is absolutely ridiculously beautiful. So yeah, once you have these two extensions, what I just did in like 5 minutes, you can do it in way less. This is all for this very long video. I will see you guys in the next one. Like this video if you like it, dislike this video if you disliked it, and please let me know what's your feedback on this little small me in the corner of the screen. If it's really not worth it, then I will take it away. Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.